Okay, guys, today we have on very, very special guest. Big fan of Word Show, allegedly. I know he would say that regardless, so it's hard to know. But David Hoffman from Bankless. I don't think you need much of an introduction, so we'll skip this. David, what do you think? You can go anywhere you want with this any direction you want with this question. How do you feel about the state of crypto right now?
How do I feel about the state of crypto right now? Okay. Maybe I can just back up and be like, when I got into crypto, 2017 through 2020, I was like, wow, this is going to change the world. This is an inherently optimistic technology. Like when I think about blockchains, they have like little sparkles on them, and it's going to be so great. And the future is going to be abundant because of blockchains. And wow, the world is, the oyster for blockchain technology. And like, the naive, right? 2017, how old was I? Like 24, 25. Naive, like overly optimistic, way too in my imagination. And to some degree, that's what the crypto industry was as a whole, because it just hadn't been built out yet. So therefore, everything was in our imaginations all the time. And, imaginations are unbridled. And I kind of think that relates to like how crazy the bubbles of 2017 and 2021 were, because like you could just imagine anything, because we were just not tethered to reality whatsoever. And that was like a really fun era of crypto. Like I look back on that era with nostalgia, and I think a lot of people do. Yeah. And a part of that, I think, is because just nothing was real at that point, and therefore we could imagine anything. And so now when people like look around in the industry and they just see so much depression and despair and like nihilism, I think part of that came from the fact that like, well, once upon a time, we were completely unrealistic about what we could do in like a short or even medium amount of time, or potentially ever, who knows? I think the big question is like, if the pendulum is like shifting too far back into like the like unimaginative, nihilist side of things, or whether we are just like coming down from our high of imagination and now we're kind of in a hangover. And maybe Wall Street was always destined to like kind of Linux us into irrelevancy. And these are potentially like real concerns that as an industry we should have. Like we just had Zuko on the podcast, and we talked about the failures of the Linux movement to really like impart its values and imagination upon the world, and really just ended up being like a product that like Google sells, for example. And like that's kind of the current state of play, and I think that's why everyone's like not really thrilled. No one's thrilled anymore.
I think that it seems, I don't know, tell me if you agree, this seems like a period of, which is scarier than any of the bear markets we've had. It's like this period of indifference, and that seems much worse. Like again, this is a question. This isn't just my opinion. Like, what now in crypto specifically gets you excited that is new and novel in the ways that things were new and novel in 2017 and 2021? Now, whether or not those things work or were ever going to work, right? There is naivete on all sides, but what now gets you excited? Like, because maybe a little bit of context. Bankless has expanded into AI, right? Your co-host...
The world has expanded into AI, right? And we've tracked the world, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Your co-host took a sabbatical.
3 months, right? 3 month sabbatical.
What is getting you like truly excited right now? And with regards to crypto, right?
Yeah, I do think that just like the old world of finance moves far too slow to keep up with the modern pace of technology. Like AI is just progressing so incredibly fast. Like everyone's talking about Claude Code and all of these like new bots and agents and all that kind of stuff that is allowing people to move at an incredibly fast pace. Yeah. And the trad world of regulation just is not the right form factor for the capital markets that could be associated with the product that comes out of this very fast-paced technology. And so like to some degree, internet capital markets is the right form factor to keep up with the rate of change in technology. Like things like, SpaceX is obviously still going to IPO, and OpenAI is still going to IPO because those are the current very large markets But like what the thing that I am hopeful about is that internet capital markets, capital formation on public permissionless blockchains is the right form factor to enable investment at the right pace to like kind of keep up with society. So that's kind of what's exciting to me.
Yeah, I think that, so one thing that I've felt about you and Bankless is that I have long disagreed maybe about our coins of choice and maybe some of your vision of the future, but I do believe that you have a lot of context. I do believe that both you and your co-host have seen and remember a lot of the original vision. And the reason that this is important is because there are a lot of new entrants who I don't think have a lot of this context. So when they talk, like I saw a very interesting comment the other day, and this is one of those things again where I don't agree with you about a lot of stuff, but I do agree with you at least with some of the vision that you, I think, talk about is similar to what I at least envision myself. And so what I was going to say was, I saw this tweet the other day where somebody said like we should have called protocols businesses, and you responded,
like a Mike Ippolito tweet.
Okay, so yeah, maybe I don't recall, but you have context from when we were building protocols. Mm-hmm. And protocols are a real defined thing, right? It's not, I think we try to like pretend there's a lot of nuance to, well, is it a business or a protocol? And in reality, a protocol is a set of rules, and there's protocols outside of computer science, right? Like there's a protocol for when you pull the fire alarm. Everybody, there's protocols for when there's a report to HR. It's a set of rules that people opt into. And we've since, like with open source computing, there are protocols, and the idea is the set of rules that people opt into it, and nobody really owns it because there's not really incentive to own it, right? Like it's what we all agree to run for self-sovereignty or permissionless or security or like various reasons. And this is something that I think you remember, right? And this is what I'm talking about. Like that is context that does not appear very much anymore. And so when we talk about revenue, we talk about businesses, it's like, that's fine. And I don't disagree. That's the direction we're going. But my point with saying all this is a bit of a diatribe. I think, so I'll turn this question back around on myself. I think there's a lot of memory holing as to what we were trying to do. And there's a lot of pretending like this was the vision all along. And at some point, I think that there are thresholds, there are lines where it's like, that was not the vision. Like tokenization on a New York Stock Exchange owned ledger with 3 or 4 validators. I'm doing this in quotation marks. People can't see me, but validators, like that was not the vision. Now it's okay. That's where we're going, but that wasn't the vision. So I wonder, like, do you look at some things and think like that's a threshold? So the reason you said internet capital markets on permissionless open blockchains. What do you think is the probability of that? Like what we're seeing right now is a lot of not open permissionless blockchains. And what is your kind of like long run view on this? And is that even crypto, right? Like I ask myself this a lot. Like what is tokenization on a single sequencer run by Robinhood? Like, is that crypto, right?
Yeah. Yeah. To some degree, we've seen this movie before. Like this is just a rebirth of the blockchain, not Bitcoin movement. Yeah. And I don't mean that to just completely invalidate it and say that that's not a real thing. Because like, every time the blockchain, not Bitcoin movement comes back, it comes back stronger and more capable and more relevant than ever before. So like, just because we defeated the blockchain, not Bitcoin movement of like the IBM Hyperledger era, or like whatever the hell we were doing in the 2018 through 2020 era, just because we defeated it back then doesn't automatically mean that now that Tempo is a thing and now like the New York Stock Exchange is doing the thing. Like that's not a given that those projects are failures. It is a given that those things are like not benefiting from why we the public permissionless blockchain side of things beat out the blockchain, not Bitcoin side of things in the first place. Like they are not public permissionless open platforms and they don't have that going for them. And so that's a, weight in our camp. That's a point for us. but nonetheless, like they can still co-opt the technology and do the things that they want to do with our technology, and that it can be successful despite it not having all the cool things that makes our side of the aisle very, very cool. And so like in the same way of just like kind of like using Zuko's idea of just like, we need to make sure we don't Linux ourselves into irrelevancy. Like we have to once again fight the blockchain, not Bitcoin fight, and win out using the strengths that we have, and have to do this fight all over again. And then if and when we win again, that fight will come back again. 4 years in the future, 5 years in the future, once again, and we'll have to do it again. And both we, the public permissionless side of things, will be more powerful and more capable and larger with higher market caps and more capability and more users and all that kind of stuff. And also the new reincarnation of the blockchain, not Bitcoin, whatever comes again in 4 or 5 years, will once again be more capable, more powerful, and we will have to fight that fight again. And it will once again not be a given that our side of things wins. I don't know, maybe actually this is the last time, because like who's bigger than the New York Stock Exchange, for example? Like that is the world's capital markets, but like the metaphor I think stands.
Have you been surprised? Give me your thoughts on Solana.
Solana.
Yeah.
I kind of think the whole tribal wars are just like a thing of the past.
I agree.
Yeah. Like there's that meme of like the Japanese man still fighting with the World War II fight. And like, I think people point that at Meath Maxis because they're the ones who are kind of doing that tribal thing. But I actually just think that can be used for anyone who is tribal in 2026. And so like, my fights versus the Solana ideology were like, I did that. I checked that box. People have heard what I've had to say about my opinions on Solana, and like continuing to fight that fight, I don't think is beneficial for anyone. Like just whatever degree of like me, like using my platform to espouse values and principles that I don't think Solana embodies, to whatever degree that pulled Solana to embody those values and principles more is like done now. And I've whatever degree I've been able to contribute to that, I have. And like now in 2026, I'm just like, whatever, like they're at this point, they're on our side of things in the terms of like decentralization. And like, nonetheless, like I still don't think they are sufficiently decentralized to like have the world's capital markets on it. But like it's pushing up against like a brick wall. Like there's no point fighting that fight.
Well, okay, but this kind of goes to a larger point of just the entire idea of community, right? Like you saw, who was it recently? Morpho, I think, just completely deleted their Discord.
Discord, yeah.
Yeah. And it's a sign of maturation, I think, undeniably. It's interesting because I don't think there's a Robinhood Discord, right? I don't think there's a CME Discord. No. So it's a sign of the times, but so much of crypto was predicated on community and everybody believing in a shared purpose, oftentimes to make money collectively, or a shared vision. And this entire concept is like largely unraveling in the face of just companies, right? And it seems a lot weirder now almost to be a member of just like you use an application, right? Like I'm not a member of the Discord for Uber. I'm not a member of the Discord for DoorDash, right? Like, but Bankless was very much a community. Like at one point there, and I'm not saying you aren't anymore. I'm just saying that was a big selling point. Like, how have you thought about evolving in that capacity, right? Like, do people, and I think about this too, like this Twitter is just not what it used to be. And I'm not trying to say like the good times or, you know what I mean? but it's not, right? It's not what it used to be. And there isn't this sense of like a shared vision anymore. I'm curious how you think about that with regards to like Bankless and then, your vision going forward.
Yeah. I don't want to discount the role that Discord scams played in the removal of the Morpho Discord. Yeah. Like all Discords are just surface area for scams. Like the Punks Discord, which will always be a community led Discord, is just like riddled with like scammers trying to scam you out of your punk, and they have just kind of like grown a.
So let your punk send it to me. The Bored Apes oftentimes version.
Yeah. So like I think to like some degree is a combination of just like Morpho that wasn't getting value out of their Discord, and it was like too much of a place where scammers were infiltrating. So like to some degree, I don't want to discount that happened. But to also your point, like what you're saying, I think is also true. And just like there's this like picture that I used to use a lot back in 2021, 2020 to like really communicate what crypto is doing. And it's like a two panel comic, and one is like a shark chasing a bunch of little fish. And then that panel has "Don't panic" on it. And then the next panel is all of the fish banding together to form what looks like the shape of a much larger shark. And now it's chasing the shark. And so it's like, don't panic, coordinate. And it's all about the idea of like, bottom up coordination using protocols can allow the communities to band together. And through the power of coordination, sparkles and rainbows, we can take down Wall Street. And I think that's kind of what you're alluding to, is like that power when you shut down a Discord is kind of like illustrating that like we actually aren't really coordinating the community anymore. We are now businesses. And, is more for a protocol or a business. Like it's a little bit of both to give credit to like Mike Ippolito's like idea. It's just like, well, if you don't treat it like a business, you're going to go out of business. But also, if you don't treat it like a protocol, you're not going to have a business. And so that's a little bit of yes and.
I have like generally mixed feelings on that, and only because of what I said, which was right when I got into crypto, I didn't have any context, or I didn't like know anything, but I did make somewhat. I mean, not to say that I'm an expert, but I made somewhat of an effort to understand like the history of open source computing and like understand what people were trying to do, like the cypherpunks and Linux and like TCP/IP and internet native protocols, and like who maintains those and whatnot. Anyways, I'm fine with what is emerging, like, and I think that this is very likely the end game. I just think that the reason again that I bring this up is because I do think you of all, I'm not saying of all people, a few people in fact have this context, and I see, I just see a lot of like VCs and the thought leaders giving, their hot takes on the direction of crypto. And a lot of it, ironically, is like, it doesn't really support what they invested in for the past 5 or 10 years. From my perspective, it's like, you invested in a lot of this infrastructure, and this isn't exactly what you're talking about where it's going. So it's like, oh, of course it's easy to be revisionist about this, but it is a weird period, and I feel that, I don't know. I mean, like everyone's investing in precious metals right now, right? Like, and even the tokenization stuff, it doesn't excite me really. And I don't see it transitioning back. Right. And I think your point is kind of like continue to defeat the blockchain, not Bitcoin or whatever. Like, and I understand that, but I don't know. I think that it does seem to me, and I could be very wrong about this, but it does seem to me that incumbents have a pretty big advantage with this type of technology, which is open source and oftentimes can be effectively integrated as a feature fairly simply. There aren't massive moats to software. And so I say worry. I mean, like, for example, okay, so here's a good question. Like, what do you think of Hyperliquid? Like, Hyperliquid has been a huge success story for the most part. And what do you like? What's your take on Hyperliquid? And I have a point with this, so like, but I want to hear first what you think.
Yeah, I don't know if my take about Hyperliquid is all that like special. It cut the corners that it needed to cut in order to have the trading experience that it needed to have to great success. So fantastic strategy. And now like we're putting things on Hyperliquid, like real world assets and gold and equities. And so that's great. That's like an innovation and an unlock that we have been looking for. And so like, my take on the Hyperliquid is like the normal take. What they're doing is great. they cut corners and that worked out for them? And can we scale that into like a public permissionless, completely decentralized protocol? Don't think so. Would that also like neuter their business and make it like ineffective? Probably. Should they do the thing of like going full decentralization maxi? Probably not. And that's fine. And also we have like alternatives out there that do kind of do some of those things like lighter as well, which I think is like a proof of principles of like you can do a little bit more cypherpunk hardcore stuff and still get outcomes. But like nonetheless, like, yeah, so like my take about Hyperliquid is like the normal take. Whatever.
Yeah, so I think that like I'm supportive of Hyperliquid for kind of one reason. First of all, I don't trade perps. Like, I mean, I do, but I don't pretend to have any edge. Like, I'm very much degenerately gambling. I'm optimistic about Hyperliquid for the sole reason that I think it would be good if there is proof that startups can compete with incumbents, right? So, like, in a sense, I don't think we decentralized NASDAQ, but we created 100 smaller centralized NASDAQs that have to compete with each other. And that's good for users. Now, is that decentralized NASDAQ? No, but the optionality is good. And a lot of what crypto seems to me now is that the ability to opt out is sort of our strongest selling point, right? Like the ability that, okay, we don't like that financial system. We can opt into another. Now, a lot of this is like the regulatory side. And I guess one question I kind of have, when you got into Ethereum and you know, listened to Vitalik and a lot of the kind of thought leaders early on, would you have ever imagined that sort of the bulk of users are, you know, doing social stuff on a Coinbase L2? Like, how does that, how do you square sort of the original vision with what most people are kind of doing at this juncture? This isn't like necessarily, you don't have to take this as like a criticism. It's more just interesting, you know?
Yeah. I think it's hard to put myself in my shoes all the way back then, but like, I kind of thought that like the crypto world would progress down the same kind of track that Uniswap opened up and MakerDAO opened up, which is like on-chain financial smart contracts. And like, we did kind of push on that frontier. We got Pendle, we got Morpho, like things like even like Alchemix, like great mechanism.
A loan that pays itself back.
Yeah, like stuff like that, man. Like that's cool.
It's interesting.
It's like more financial mechanisms that, you know, take in the interoperability and composability and all that kind of stuff. And so like we did go down that track, but like not nearly to the same degree that I thought that we would. And like there was examples of like Web3 social back in that day before we even called it Web3, like Steam, like the whole Steam thing. Remember Steam?
Yeah, I remember Steam.
Yeah. And so like we had Web3 social. I was like, oh yeah, that'll also be a thing. But also again, back then I was like, you know, everything is going to be a thing on Ethereum because that's what you could imagine in 2018. So like the trend towards hyper financialization and like hyper trading is not what I accounted for back in the days, but I would be the person to not account for that as a non-trader. And yeah,
I completely agree. No, I think that's actually ironically, and it's funny you say that because I don't think this really resonates with people, that the fact that the primary product market fit really, I mean, like they're stated in the revealed preferences, and like the revealed preference has been trading, like swapping assets, trading this for this. And, you know, there's like some ancillary, you know, MakerDAO and Aave and these things, but a lot of those are kind of functionally serve to allow you to do more trading, right? So at least for the time being, and I'm not saying that these versions of these protocols can't, you know, eventually evolve into like, you know, proper other financial stuff, but for at the beginning, and it makes sense, right? It was very early. There wasn't real assets on chain, like, but I don't think people realize that this was not really a thought in 2015 and 2016 and 2017 that high frequency trading of assets was going to be the primary use case for blockchains. Right. And like what's hilarious is that this Dark Forest paper, the MEV paper, was, I mean, it wasn't until when was that, 2019 or 20, like, but
no,
it was,
dude, like 2020, 2021, okay, so, even maybe.
Like it, and that is, I mean, if you're actually zooming out, that's insane that it took 11 years, or I mean, whatever, from the inception of the first sort of blockchain with Bitcoin, for people to realize that, like, oh, hang on, like this ordering thing can make like all the difference in the world. And in fact, designing around this ordering thing is quite literally the key sort of like mechanism that we need to solve. So when I hear, like it's fascinating because I go back and read these papers. So like Chris Bernitsky actually, ironically, I think wrote one of the best papers on valuing crypto assets. It's not really used in practice anymore. Who the other guy was from, who wrote a good paper from Delphi. I forget his name, like Jose something. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
But like there was no discussion of, like blockchains could generate money because the validators can order transactions in a certain way. Like I don't think people realize how big of a deal this is, right? Our solution has been sort of, I would say, to move towards increasingly centralized systems, which may be the only in game. But like just, I used to listen to all of the Bankless podcasts with Justin Drake and Hasu, and we don't have those discussions anymore, right? Like that's what's that kind of there. You were talking about like the nostalgia. Like I feel the same way. As like we're not talking about those things anymore. Would you ever bring on somebody to Bankless now to talk about like PBS? Like maybe, but it's not going to be it's not going to be twice a month.
Yeah. There was an era in which like learning about deep tech stuff was super in vogue, like in 2021 through 2022. It was just like everyone wanted to learn about the basement of Ethereum. And like that was what like Bankless mainly supplied into like the content sphere. It was like, yo, let's get really nerdy and do our best to describe these things. To some degree, like we picked the low hanging fruit back then, not just Bankless, but just like as an industry, like the MEV was actually able to be made accessible, and like the philosophy of MEV was a real topic that you could talk about and like expand on and kind of connect it to very abstract ideas that like the average layperson could like wrap their head around.
Yeah.
And now we're way higher up the tree. If whatever we talk about now, like the proposer builder separation, is just like these are not low hanging fruit, and they don't really connect to very many things, and they're not big ideas, and they're just straight nerd stuff. And like not only in 2026 is the industry much smaller, but the appetite for that kind of stuff is just much, much less.
Let me take a moment to talk to you about Ellipsis Labs, a team I've known for a while. The Ellipsis team is one of the few that I consistently point to and say, these guys really know what they're doing. Ellipsis Labs brought capital-efficient order books to Solana and started the Prop AMM revolution with SolFi. Altogether, they've saved retail traders tens of millions of dollars by reducing slippage on spot markets. They're bringing the same level of expertise to perpetuals with Phoenix, which is live today. Ellipsis Labs is backed by Paradigm, Electric Capital, and Hoffman Ventures. I would consider them the foremost experts in crypto market microstructure. The best part is that Ellipsis Labs is hiring for New York-based engineers. Work with a small, focused team who are results-driven, collaborative, and use a modern stack. If you're an engineer with a DeFi team that's already proven itself in the market, go to ellipsislabs.xyz/careers. Yeah. How do you feel about the future of media? I ask this because, like this podcast is, I bring on whoever. It's totally random, right? Like I just see somebody on Twitter and bring them on, or I bring on somebody like really well known like yourself, like, you know what I mean? So it's a wide array, but it was mainly talking about crypto stuff and oftentimes mechanism stuff and nerd stuff too. And at this juncture, there is, in my opinion, it's like, are we being forced to just become fintech podcasts? And I don't think that I have any unique insights when it comes to fintech, right? Like I make this joke. I think I said this when I came on who am I to tell Stripe how to build a payment system? You know what I mean? Right. This juncture, kind of like all of the crypto people it feels like we're very much, pushed to the back when it compared to Bitwise and, Fidelity and the New York Stock Exchange and Robinhood. It's like, who am I to give commentary on this stuff now? But how do you feel then about like Bankless and just the trend of media going forward with crypto?
Yeah. Like as it kind of relates to like my job and like the producing the content that I have, like a lot of what broader trend is happening is that, and like this has been a trend for a while, and like this has been something that I've just actually been advocating for, and I tell like my portfolio companies and other startups, is just like every company needs their own media arm. And so like you watch both Robinhood and Coinbase do their own like Apple style events, and they do their own comms. And so they don't actually depend on some external media to do their announcements. They do all their own tricks now, because like this media technology is also becoming more democratized. And you also see that in like, there are 10,000 crypto podcasts, and 99.9% of them suck. But it doesn't matter, because like people will thrive off of a very low audience, and like you can find niches and just like 100 to 1,000 people that like listen to your podcast, and like they just for some reason like those hosts. And so like things are getting really spread out, and everyone is like, Elon Musk did this with Twitter. Like this was one of his goals for Twitter, is like, I'm going to make everyone a journalist. That was the Twitter narrative before Elon Musk. And then like with spaces, like spaces are a thing, and like the media itself is just being so spread out. So like where's my role in that is like, well, like me and Ryan do a very good job prepping for podcasts, producing agendas, doing research. Like I think we are very good podcasters. And so like that's kind of our
oh yeah, brother.
Yeah, I think we are. We do a good job. We put a lot of effort into like, you know, doing the things we need to do to make our podcast episodes enjoyable to listen to. And for some reason, like podcasters just don't, like most podcasters don't do that same level of like rigor when it comes to producing an episode. It's also hard work, and there's not the same level of ROI to doing that as there was in the past. And then also inside of that, we're inside of an ecosystem that is just attracting fewer and fewer eyeballs. Like to some degree, like one of the malaise of crypto, reasons why there's this malaise of crypto, is that like AI is far more interesting, and the traditional stock market is where the action is. That's where all the motion is. And now it's gold, right? Like Bitcoin is how many years old? 16 years old. And China is finally moving away from the dollar system. And where is it going? Gold. It's going to gold. It's not going to Bitcoin. And so like, and then also there's like this quantum thing that is also maybe like suppressing the industry as a whole. Like, I don't know, maybe. And so like to some degree, like the limelight is just not in crypto. And that also is impacting like what we can talk about here.
Yeah, I think that, and I wholeheartedly agree. I will say this, there's kind of this chicken or the egg thing where, yes, like a lot of liquidity and mind share has flown, has kind of gone to AI this cycle. With that said, if the highest ROI was in crypto, then there would be money here. So like I'm in agreement that as a general statement, AI is more novel and there's a lot more mind share there. And it's also, I mean, it's kind of undeniable. It's more tangibly innovative. Like crypto there's marginal gains, especially for people in the first world where most of the capital is. Stable coins don't resonate the same way they do to somebody in Argentina or Sudan or wherever, right? Like, so a lot of the actual practical application is very like visible. It's visceral with AI. But I guess like I also think that we have maybe partially used this as a bit of a cop out. Like given the past 2 years of launches and money in the crypto ecosystem, it has been pretty like depressing. And I mean, has there been what do you make of this? Just most of the big hyped launches, you know, Hyperliquid being somewhat of an exception, and I think there's reasons for that. But like outside of that, it does not look great. And so I think that's the other reason, is that like people are losing money here; they're not making money here. So like, how do you feel about this?
One of the projects that like I would love to invest in, I would love to buy and put a decent chunk of my portfolio into Athena. Like it's got the right product. It's a stable coin. It's got the derivative background. But then I just go and I look at the price chart versus the market cap chart. And the market cap chart's doing great. Price chart, not doing great. Like it's a fantastic product that created a ton amount of wealth, $2.5 billion. But just like the value was captured like very, very early in the stack. And like it's just been dilutive. And that's just part of like our market structure. And like you can go to the Binance Launchpad and you can look at like the median token on Binance, and it's just like terribly down. And yeah, I don't know. To some degree, like I can go back and say like, you know, like the capital markets are elsewhere. Maybe quantum is putting us a damper on the valuation of everything. And we haven't like fixed our token shit yet. Like the whole Uni Labs versus a Uni Foundation thing, followed by the Aave thing. At least Uniswap is fixing everything, or has fixed, because now they're like, they did the whole unification. But like still, like the industry as a whole still needs to like kind of solve its capital markets problems. But yeah, I don't really have any comments beyond that. It's just like, it doesn't like it, getting a return on investment seems very, very hard outside of just like buying the blue chips. Zcash, I think, would be the other one. That's an exception.
Yeah. Well, even the blue chips. I mean, I like, for example, do you consider Uniswap a blue chip? Like, is Uni a blue chip?
No, like blue chips are Bitcoin and Ether.
Okay. Yeah. So like, I was having this discussion with somebody, and I basically said the same thing. It's like, and actually, I think Athena is a great example, and I think Guy I really like him. Like, it's very stand up, and I think he's just very smart and has the right vision. But yeah, it's really hard to find tokens where the risk return is there, and that asymmetric upside has not revealed itself in the past 2 to 3 years with these launches. And these launches got priced sort of accurately. I'm saying that I don't really mean accurately. I mean more that they were priced in private markets, in private rounds, at valuations that were basically very, very high already. And I mean, I had this argument with Haseeb for 2 hours, right? Like, and that, but I think Athena is a great example, right? Like, what is wrong there structurally? Like, why is it down only? And this is across the board. We're not picking on Athena here, right? Like, all of these projects that seem to have, very good sort of ideas and maybe even moats, like, to some extent, and yet it's not there. Like, what how do you convince somebody to spend their time in crypto, though? You know what I mean? Like, how do you convince somebody to like deploy capital or be interested in projects here when they look at these market caps?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, I always kind of like I wonder to like what degree is this like, crypto's just got a bad narrative and a bad public zeitgeist. And maybe that's the reason, like, why prices are down bad. Maybe we just have bad optics. And if we had better optics, all of our tokens wouldn't be down so bad. Like, and like, so sometimes I'm just like, it's not even about like whatever you debated with Haseeb for 2 hours ago. It was like a third issue that neither of you guys talked about, which is just like, the optics are bad. The zeitgeist is bad. Everyone thinks crypto is once again for like scammers and gamblers. And maybe if we didn't have that as like the brand of the industry, we would have a stronger representation of liquidity and capital markets across the board, like stuff like that. And like, I just don't know. There's so many fucking variables, dude.
Yeah, and I think people are finally starting to realize this, but it's taken quite some time. I don't think people really realize just how anomalous 2021 was.
Yeah.
Or like the last year cycle with COVID,
Yep.
zero, like ZERP being locked up, everybody gambling. Like, this is a period in history that will be seen as like a mania that is truly anomalous, right? Like, it is our tulip bubble. And also, a lot of people got really rinsed, as you know, like between FTX, Luna, every other project bearing the brunt of that, people got really, really wrecked. Sure. And NFTs, like, man, like,
dude,
people
Bored Ape prices.
Exactly. So I think you're right. The optics are not great, but the thing, I guess, like leading off, like kind of going off this, is that now you're talking about like your own portfolio companies and stuff. Like, I don't see the early opportunities to invest. Now, I don't have sick deal flow, right? Like, I think that you guys probably do have really good deal flow. I don't. Like, so most of my deal flow, if you will, is like personal friends, and I invest in people I know personally, and it's truly like, I don't talk about it publicly because I don't know if they're good investments, and I really don't want other people to think that they're good investments. It's like, I want these people to know that I support them. I don't know that I support them publicly because it's a gamble, right? Like, so, but my point with all this is to say that, what do you like in like Bankless Ventures, right? So I'm talking a bit about that. Do you run that yourself with Ryan? Like, what is the dynamic there?
Yeah. So Bankless Ventures, 3 GPs, me, Ryan, and then Ben Lakoff. Me and Ryan are like the 2 kind of part-time GPs, and then Ben Lakoff is the 3rd GP. We had the idea for Bankless Ventures back in 2021, where like Ryan and I were taking like a too large amount of angel investor calls where people were just pitching us as angels. And then it was like our 5th of the week, and it was getting in the way of us doing the podcast. And I was like, Ryan, let's hire an analyst to like just do some of this work for us, because this is turning into just like almost a full-time job. Oh, I have a good idea. We can take money from friends and family to pay for that analyst's salary. We can charge them a fee. Genius. Oh, wait a second. That's a fund. That's what a VC fund is. And then we put that idea back on the shelf in 2021 because we were like, we still have to build out Bankless Media, blah, blah, blah. We need somebody to like round out this leadership team in order to really like take this full time. And then we found Ben. And Ben was the 3rd GP to be able to take that full time. And then we have 2 research analysts, research investment partners who are just absolute chads who punch like way above their weight class. And so that's the team. And so we just funnel all of our deal flow that we get from Bankless into Bankless Ventures. We're on Fund 2 now, and Fund 2 we just kind of learned a lot of the same lessons that first GPs always learn their first rodeo, which is like we wrote a ton of checks, a ton of like small to medium sized checks. And so Fund 2 just started. So now we're learning to like, okay, we instead of writing like 50 to 60 checks, we want to write like 15 to 20 checks, much lower. And so that's kind of where we're at right now.
So, okay, going off that, what are you investing in? Like, I mean, you don't have to, obviously I don't know like how much of it is, non-disclosed and stuff, but like, sure. What are you interested in right now? And like, maybe from an investment perspective, where are you guys deploying?
Yeah, so there is like the most recent portfolio company that just announced is Yuki's Tenbin company. Yeah. And so that's kind of like an evolution of tokenization, where if you kind of think that like if you just take a real world asset and put it in a token wrapper, that's like tokenization 1.0 and like kind of a primitive way to do tokenization, but it would be the normal way to start this whole tokenization vertical. Tenbin's working on just like a far more sophisticated, smart, and like integrated tokenization play where there's just like connection into TradFi for liquidity and liquidations. And so you get a more high fidelity relationship between the token and the capital markets behind it to make it be able to attract more capital and make it larger. Cause like one of the fundamental constraints on current tokenization is that like can't do liquidations and there's not as good like liquidity there. So that's one of them. Another sector that we're looking in is just like, well, the growth of private markets, like Stripe, SpaceX, OpenAI. Like some of the world's most valuable big companies are just completely private, and people are working on like trying to democratize access to that, which ironically makes them public. So how do we make private markets public again and give investor access? And so there's a handful of deals that we're looking in that sector as well. I can keep going.
No. I guess the reason I ask this as well, it kind of goes off my earlier point. I don't really talk too much about like my crypto, gambling and whatnot, because again, like I just don't necessarily know that I have an edge, so I try not to like steer people towards doing what I did. But I wasn't really in for like the beginning of DeFi summer, but I was in kind of like the tail end of that early bull market, and I was farming yield on Binance Smart Chain and like a lot of the early Solana projects. And my point with all this is to say that there were a lot of opportunities then for retail to get direct access through yield farming or token incentives and stuff like this. And people now, right, like the trenchers, it's a totally different market. And there's still like, I'm sure edge to be had there. It's not mine, but we used to be able to farm tokens that went up. I remember farming BSC. I remember farming Pancake Swap, and Cake went from $2 to like $48, and you could farm it for like 1,000% APY and immediately stake it for like 500% APY, and the token went up in price. And it was like this,
dude. The times were good. The times are good. This is the 2021 era. That's totally anomalous.
For sure. But I'm pointing out now that I don't. And again, I'm not in the trenches, but like it does seem now like the opportunities are in pump.fun friends and family groups or whatever, right? And it I don't see these like, I mean, Lighter was okay, so I was pretty early on Lighter, and like that was a good that was a good project. I wasn't in Hyperliquid, but my point is like, we always say this, oh, like this is the past, like this will come back, and but I don't see the opportunities now. I'm sure there will be, but like, where do you see people being able to, like, again, you and I are just talking about the Athena chart, like, man, this thing's straight down, like what's happening here, right? Like, where do you see outside of, access, to private deals and stuff for people to deploy? Do you see that, or again, not really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm actually pretty hopeful about the incoming Mega ETH ecosystem.
Okay.
Like they just have done, like my friend, Andy 8052. Do you know Andy?
Yeah.
I was getting dinner with him like a while ago, like 4 or 5 months ago, and he said
the sports betting guy, right? Like I see his like
big sport, big degen, just like on-chain degen, kind of beloved as a degen, but beloved to degen, that's what I'll call him. And like he said something that I thought was pretty good. It's just like, the reason why Mega ETH is like such a big deal isn't because of the scale. It's not the scale. Like the scale's nice and like actually necessary in this day and age. But the reason why everyone's hyped about Mega ETH is like all the apps. Like they've done a fantastic job fostering all the apps. And like I've gone and looked around at like the Mega ETH app ecosystem. Like there's like a ton of like novel stuff that I haven't seen anywhere else. Things that are like a super consumer friendly, like this like poker Hearthstone hybrid game.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and then like Euphoria, which I think everyone is like trying to get their hands on. You know Euphoria?
Yeah.
You like tap.
Wait, it's like, oh yeah.
You tap the squares, and when you tap the square, it puts $5, and if the price goes into that little quadrant, you get like 2 to 5x or something. Like I think
we are going to hell.
But like you can imagine like somebody watching like the FOMC meeting like with the gold chart or the Bitcoin chart and like what Powell says, they're just tapping the right squares.
No, that's hilarious. I think that's a good idea. Like I mean, I hate to say that, but I think that's a good idea. Like that is incredible. That's like the most that is the most, in your face version of like, oh yeah, we can get people trading like essentially like options on a little, tic-tac-toe board.
So like to some degree, I will throw a flag at what you were saying about like farming pancake swap and all that kind of stuff, because that was just like the wrong form factor. And like no one is farming tokens anymore, because like farming in 2021 was actually bait to just attract people to put their money in an app. And that's what made the token go up in price. And then, in 2022, not only did the tokens go down in price, but everyone realized that these are just traps for your money, and somebody's on the other side, taking your money. And it was good for a hot bit while the ZERP and COVID policy was like putting everyone into these little traps, like funneling people into the traps. But like now people are all woke up as like, no, the form factor was incorrect. And so now people are just much more precise and targeted about like how they distribute their tokens, because like they don't want their token to go down. Did you see what Cap is doing with their airdrop?
Is it like stake drop or something?
Stable drop is what they're calling it. And so all of the Cap farmers who are farming Cap points are getting an airdrop of stable coins, and then they are doing a regular token sale. And so they are giving the people who farmed their token dollars, because they don't want that to be in the hands of like a persistent sell pressure. And then they are inviting those same people, say, hey, we just gave you dollars. If you want to participate in our token sale, you can take the dollars that we just gave you and you can participate in the token sale, or you can take the dollars that you rightfully farmed and you can fuck off. And thank you for your deposits. Here's your compensation. If you don't want the actual token, don't buy it. But if you do want the token, you can give us those dollars back and you can have the token. And so I think a lot of people are just like finding better form factors to encourage like better price action in their chart. And so that one of the reasons why I'm like optimistic about like the Mega ETH ecosystem is A, there's a diversity of like novel apps, and B, we kind of get like a new refreshed attempt at distributing tokens that don't go down in price.
Yeah, I definitely think that what you're saying, basically like the cost of equity, like, I mean, from like a financial perspective, it's basically saying like the cost of equity was much lower than the cost of debt, like with these tokens, and that, people would rather give you the tokens than the dollars. And now that is like, that's interesting. What I didn't know that Cap was doing it like that, but that is interesting that they're giving you dollars, and then you need to make like the active decision to go and purchase the token. And I think that
investor.
It's sort of like slightly different, but I had this like back and forth. Well, I didn't really engage, but like Haseeb was pointing out that like it's basically dollars. I'm like, you could say that, but it's not. Like, it does make a difference. And when teams, not accusing anybody, but when teams felt that they could print tokens out of thin air, then it was much easier to give those away than to give away the dollars that they earned. And we saw a lot of projects like that where they brought in fees in real dollars and they gave you fake tokens, and they just, went to Bali and never spoke to anybody again. And like, such is life. And we've since learned. So I want to ask a little bit more about like the community aspect of Bankless and stuff. Like, so explain to me what is Bankless DAO, and what is the, what is this?
Bankless DAO is now in was territory.
Okay. So talk me through that. Like, just, I'm candid. Yeah. Like, I'm not being in.
Yeah. So in 2021, Bankless experiencing just like massive growth, and we were very idealistic and like mission driven, and like we did the job of like inspiring people about crypto. And so many people were in mine and Ryan's DMs of being like, yo, I don't know how, but I just want to help. I believe in the mission. I want to help the Bankless movement. I want to help people go Bankless. I want like all the self-sovereignty. Like, how can I help? And like Ryan and I were just like overwhelmed with like producing podcasts in the first place, because we like turned up the speed of our content treadmill up to the fucking max. Yeah. And so like we both did need the help, but we were overwhelmed with like how to like actually integrate people into like and facilitate their requests. And so we were growing the centralized Bankless LLC team. And then we had all these like DMs about like, how can I help? And then one of our employees had this idea of just like, yo, let's start a DAO. Like, we have all these people saying,
well, it's like the same like white people like, let's start a podcast.
Well, like, it kind of made sense, because we had our community Discord of people, and like we were in there, and like they were telling us, give us a DAO because you guys don't have enough surface area at the media company to include us, because like Ryan and I don't want to take Bankless public. We're not Brent Armstrong. We're not trying to make 1,000-person organization. We're just trying to make some, good podcasts and good content and tell good stories. And so like inside of our own like community Discord, people were like, make a DAO. We want to make a DAO. And we're like, all right, okay, let's make a DAO. And this was like messaging from day one. On May 4th, 2021, may the force be with you. We made the DAO, and then we told everyone on the community call, in the comms, on the website, this is yours. We are going to help bootstrap it and put up the organization. And then we supplied the Bankless DAO with a bunch of like product lines that we didn't want to like maintain. We didn't want to manage, and we thought that they could manage, such as like our apparel line. We had
an apparel line.
We had
some swag,
dude. We had a sick apparel line. We did it with Meta Factory, Meta DAO.
Still have any? I'll rock something for Bankless.
Yeah, I can get you some vintage. Right, thank you.
Bankless. I'll be apparel. Up in New York. I'll be up in New York soon. We'll meet up, and you're gonna bring me some swag. Yeah. Anyways, go on.
Right. So it was a collaboration with us and Meta DAO about producing apparel. We sold like very high quality like 2021 merch. And then we would have a profit, and we just gave that business line to the DAO, and we're like, all right, take this and run with it. We also had 2 index co-op indices. We had like the BED index.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. There was AUM fees for that thing. Gave that to the DAO. And so it allowed us to focus on what we wanted to focus on, which is media and content. And then we gave everything else to the DAO, and like, here is like, not only are we giving you the Bankless DAO structure, we're giving you some of our business lines to take it and run with it. And the reason why we were okay with that from like a financial perspective is like we also on day one asked the DAO to approve a 25% token allocation to Bankless. And so we owned 25% of the tokens. And that's how the DAO started. And like that was, we put that up for a governance vote. It was like a kind of an anti-SEC mechanism. But also like a legitimacy mechanism as well. Like, we asked the community to give us 25% of the tokens, which they said yes. And then we just let that run. And then we were like, okay, cool. We also paid for the salary of effectively what was a CEO of the DAO, like a head of an organization, head of the DAO to like govern the DAO. And then the first person like just got burnt out. And so we hired another person who also got burnt out. Turns out running a DAO is fast track to burning out. But like, I think we did our responsibility of, we gave them profitable business lines. We paid for the leadership for 2+ years. And then after that, like, the community kind of took it over, and we just wanted to stay narrowly focused on media. And then eventually and because we did not put like an overarching like control over it, like what happened was like the DAO was a beehive in kind of this like disorderly, chaotic fashion. And so what happened was the DAO organized into sub DAOs. So you had Bankless DAO Africa, you had Bankless DAO Japan, you had the AV Guild, you had the Writers Guild, you had the Legal Guild, you had Bankless Consulting. So everyone kind of like teamed up according to their skill sets to make like small profitable pockets of Bankless DAO. Some weren't profitable, some were. Like Bankless Consulting, actually massively profitable for how long they went. And like the AV Guild was hired by other organizations to like edit and produce podcasts. All kind of amateur stuff. Like nothing was like Bankless Consulting did a great job. Like other organizations are just kind of amateur, but like nonetheless, they were like decently profitable. And then a lot of them started finding grants. They started doing the grants game. And that's when a lot of the blowback came to My Bankless, because like there was like 17 different Bankless flavored grants for different language translations.
Like the pigeon one, man, that sent me. Pigeon, right? Isn't that the like PIDGIN? There was one in Africa that was in Pigeon. Man, I'm sorry, that one like got me. That one seriously.
Like shit, like it got out of control. It just got out of control. And
so, but like,
go ahead.
Yeah. Well, okay. I didn't want to cut you off, but why do you say it's in was territory, which I think you were about to explain. Right. So go on.
Yes. Yeah. So it got out of control and people were like, look at these bankless grifters just draining the optimism treasury, just like David and Ryan, like Sybil attacking the optimism grants program with like 17 different like DAO grants and then just putting it into the pocket and like buying a Lambo and riding off to the sun. Look at these fucking grifters. And so like at some point, like there was like the second mob attack of like crypto Twitter coming after Bankless for like things that Bankless DAO
was sure doing. I contributed
because we like let it be a headless brand that like operated. And so there was like the legitimate components of Bankless DAO, and then there was like the illegitimate components of like people that said that they were a part of Bankless DAO. And honestly, there was no one to tell them that they weren't a part of Bankless DAO, because that's how the whole thing operated. Like no one can tell you you're not part of Bankless DAO. And so we had like a sufficiently like large number of grifters wear the Bankless DAO banner asking for grants and all this kind of stuff that like it ended up blowing back on us. And like me and Ryan were like, that's not us, guys. Like the DAO is autonomous, we don't even or control the organization. And like no one really accepted that argument. And like to some degree, we didn't really like fully appreciate that just like if we are allowing people to use our brand to apply for grants, like it is our kind of responsibility. And so like we got into this like rock and hard place, and like unfortunately we had to like throw the baby out with the bathwater and like talk to the people who like really committed their time and energy and some of their life to like this Bankless DAO banner and be like, guys, like this is blowing back on us. This is causing us problems. And like we need to like disassociate from the Bankless DAO. And we since we had the IP, we were like, okay, we need the Bankless DAO to rebrand. And so like now the Bankless DAO is called the Black Flag DAO, because like the symbol of Bankless is Black Flag. And so that they are now the Black Flag DAO, and it's like a much smaller organization of at least people who are 100% mission aligned without any of the grifters, because there's no like a brand grift association to be able to be done anymore. And so like that happened in like 2023.
So, like, okay, first question, and we're kind of coming down with time, but this is like I think this is quite interesting. Mm-hmm. Do you have regrets about doing that? Like, if you go back, do you regret like the whole Bankless DAO thing?
If I put my shoes back into the place of just like when we decided to do the DAO, I was like, oh no, like that was the right choice. Knowing what I know now, I was like, well, of course not, because like there was not really like net productive outcomes. It was a good attempt. Like I don't blame my past self for the decisions that we made. It was a little bit naive. It was a little bit overly ambitious and overly optimistic. That's something that like, if I could go back in time just to like even irrelevant to crypto, and I would like talk to my younger adult self and be like, David, the world's a little bit more evil than you think it is, and you should like watch out for that. And because your trust in people and your belief in optimism is going to be like leveraged by people for their personal gain. That's like a lesson that I would like to teach my younger self. And that like kind of showed up in like the Bankless DAO. Plenty of fantastic people came and spun up very legitimate parts of the Bankless DAO. And then grifters found the opportunity to like infiltrate and like capture that for their own advantage. And I didn't really see that attack vector coming.
Yeah, I think that the reason I also think this is kind of interesting is because I think there's a lot of, so even I have matured maybe with my perspective, because I was like quite critical and, cynical about a lot of people building, like, just, I'm talking about a lot of people in crypto across the board, what they were doing. And I think in retrospect, for example, something like DAOs, I think a lot of people were good intentioned and did believe in something. And maybe maybe this was a bit of naivete and, not, again, not accusing you of this, I'm just speaking broadly, not knowing exactly how the world works, and then not knowing, like what you said about opportunists, taking advantage. And this has been, like, by the way, like, this is a problem across the board with DAOs. Like, Bankless is nowhere near the world. Like, there have been, I mean, I've looked through some governance proposals and some grant proposals where I'm like, this is absolutely criminal. Like, you're paying somebody $2 million to change the font on your website. Like, guys, I'm being hyperbolic here, but like, we saw this time and time again. But I think it is interesting because, these were a lot of things where everyone, like, Vitalik writes this post about DAOs, right? And everyone is super excited. Like, oh, dude, we should start a DAO. Like, right. We should start a podcast, exact same, thing. And then you realize as time goes on that it just, like, doesn't work out how you think. And then you have to deal with the pushback. And you guys are, like, some of the biggest names in crypto, right? And so, like, of course you're going to get maximum pushback. There was
also a lot of people who just wanted to tear Bankless down and saw the opportunity to, like, dogpile, because, like, we've kind of flooded people's backs in the past. And so, like, they use that opportunity to, like, twist them.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Last thing, is there anything in crypto where you've done, like, a full 180 and so what I mean by this, and we kind of talked about, learnings from 2017, from 2021, but is there anything that you thought was going to play out that just did not, like, you had to completely change your mind on with regards to how this, the trajectory of crypto? Like, it could be something like, AMMs, or like something more broad, you know what I mean? Like, something where you have been like, that is not what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, like a perfect complete 180 where there's, like, a perfect two sides of the issue that I hopped to the other side is a little bit harder, but there's definitely things, just like I was a blockchain optimist, expansionist, like blockchain maximalist of just, like, everything is happening on chain. And now I'm just like, it's finance. And, like, we have the abundance of block space now, and, like, Web3 social and Web3 gaming. Like, where's Web3 gaming? It's gone. It's not here. It's on
Roblox.
Yeah. So, like, to some degree, like, my opinions have just become a lot more narrow.
Yeah.
But that also might be a sign of the times, dude. Like, we're just in a pessimistic time of crypto. And so, like, maybe my attitudes on, like, blockchain social is reflective of the current pessimism. There's, like, if I had more time to, like, prepare to answer, I would have, like, a lot more things I could say.
I think one thing I would say, though, is, like, just kind of framing this differently. And it's not really, I wouldn't say it's more optimistic. It's just slightly different framing. Like, when you say pessimistic and, like, there's more narrow understanding of what this stuff is useful for, I think we've kind of found the use cases. Like, I remember, Tolly and Jesse getting into this, there's really 5, like, smart contracts. And, like, Jesse was like, there's going to be, the entire world will be, right. And it's just, like, a difference in thinking. And I think that, like, at this juncture, like, what do we know is useful? Like, stablecoins. We know stablecoins are useful, right? And that's not what got me excited about crypto initially. It's really not. Like, I thought that Bitcoin was, like, a 0 to 1 unlock. Stablecoins to me are, like, very obviously useful because I've sent wires before, and it's insane. You can send a text message to somebody in China and they receive it in, 500 milliseconds, and you take 3 days to send money, even though it's both over the internet. Like, it doesn't, you know what I mean? So, like, stable coins to me are very obviously useful, but I think we've kind of found the use cases. So, like, that would be my take, is, like, less about, I'm a little pessimistic as well, but mainly because I don't see where I can invest, right? Like, I don't really get those opportunities anymore. But in terms of, like, I just think we've figured out what's useful. That would be my take.
Yeah.
But Go ahead.
Here's like another way of like kind of expressing the pessimism that I've seen. You saw that Brian Armstrong clip when he was like checking the French central banker. The French central banker was like, Bitcoin, private money, issuer, blah, blah, blah. Brian Armstrong was like, oh, no, Bitcoin's a decentralized, the magic about Bitcoin is that it is a check on central bank deficit spending. And everyone in the crypto industry was like, Brian Armstrong just dunked on this central banker, and he totally did. But like the TAM of being a check on something else isn't massive. Like it doesn't have to be massive in order to work like that. And so like I'm looking at like China's like gold reserves just go through the absolute fucking roof. And like so like to some degree I'm like looking at the timeline of this industry and like, Bitcoin's not that old in the grand scheme of things. It's like 17 years old. But like crypto was always about being a race to relevancy, and we were in a race against ourselves, and we need to bootstrap our own industry as fast as fucking possible because we need to skyrocket into relevancy, because if we ever lose relevancy, then gaining it back is going to be so difficult. And so like to some degree I'm looking at like China buying all this Bitcoin and gold. And I'm like, there was a window of opportunity where like the geopolitical frustrations of the world were going to be expressed in a trade, and Bitcoin needs to be there for that trade. And it needs to be the winner of that trade. And we are watching China buy gold.
I'm more optimistic than you are. Also, you say Bitcoin's 17 years old. I mean, gold has been functionally the world's store of value since there was really a single unifying store of value. Okay, there were like shells in the Polynesian islands and rocks that people but in terms of a single, everybody agrees upon this. This has been gold for thousands of years.
Totally.
So I'm giving a little bit of leeway to Bitcoin and maybe perhaps some other crypto assets. I know you guys are a little bit feel differently, but I think like let's give it time. And also, I mean, I say this all the time, like I'm very much like if Bitcoin doesn't work and if it dies, I'm way over invested. I will admit that. So I will also functionally die, but like I'm willing to take that risk. You know what I mean? Like I'm very
kind of what I'm saying is like being a check on something is not the same thing as being whatever goal
that it's not just a check. I'm hopeful it's not just a check, but I do agree with you. But we can extend this beyond Bitcoin too, right? With like, is Hyperliquid being a check on the New York Stock Exchange's massive, tokenized asset platform? Like, is it we can always opt out? Like, I agree with you. That's not as compelling of like, we can
as
leave. Right. And you can leave and go have 100K of liquidity on some, Tesla purpose. Like, it's not like such a strong, like, got you, you know what I mean? And so I do tend to agree with that. Okay. But I wanted to ask you, like, last thing, ETH, like, give me your, bull post ETH or bear post ETH. But you guys are like, you said one last thing when I went on your podcast, you were like, we were very tied and sort of aligned with the Ethereum ecosystem, and the Ethereum ecosystem is just not quite as much, and these are your words, not mine, not quite as much at the forefront anymore. And I think mainly what you mean is there's just a lot of other stuff, right? Solana, Hyperliquid, L2s, depending on how you think, those kind of play in. And so that was an interesting comment, like that you made, that, when ETH was the focal point, we were also the focal point, and now it's more distributed.
Yeah, that's kind of like still my attitude. In the same way that like Bitcoin is a race against itself to become relevant for central banks, Ethereum is in a race against the rest of the smart contract layer 1 blockchains in becoming the dominant blockchain. And like the difference between Ethereum, ETH being money, and ETH being another smart contract layer 1 crypto asset is like the market share of Ethereum and the relevance of Ethereum, and like whether or not Ethereum can execute fast or slow. And so the difference of just like, ETH being money and flipping Bitcoin is the difference of like ETH executing its roadmap in 2021 versus 2031. And if ETH finishes its roadmap in 2031, it will be amongst a handful of other L1 blockchains. But if it like executes its roadmap, sooner than it is, then the market share of smart contract layer 1s is like all Ethereum's, and then ETH is money. And so like, I think we're in between those two things. Like it's neither end of the spectrum. It's somewhere in the middle. And so like, yeah, ETH has this monetary premium. It has all the research and it has the future-proof blockchain with like technological assurances that quantum's not going to attack it and that any centralization risk that Solana has isn't going to succumb to Ethereum. And so it has benefits that no other blockchain will ever have. And so it has earned some sort of market cap. It didn't do it so incredibly fast that it made Solana relevant or it made Hyperliquid irrelevant or any other smart contract. So like there's plenty of relevancy that Solana has, that Hyperliquid has, that has taken from ETH sales. And so like my answer on ETH is like, it's kind of this like middle of the road, half money, half tech platform asset that is fundamentally confusing to all investors.
Sure.
So what?
So are you bullish on, I mean, I assume yes, but I'm interested to hear, like, are you bullish on ETH for the next, I mean, are you holding like massive bags of ETH still? But I admit I hold massive bags of, Bitcoin.
What's changed in my portfolio is that a lot of it has moved into the trad stock market to get exposure to AI. So like my crypto portfolio on the crypto side of things hasn't really changed. It's still mostly ETH. I have more Bitcoin than I've ever had before, but that's going from like 0 to
good idea.
Not very high.
That's smart of you.
And then like I said, I would love to get exposure to Athena, but like not while the token is currently being like introduced into the market. So like I'm looking for tokens like that, but like no, like so I guess by proxy, yes, I'm still as like bullish Ether as ever.
Okay, good. You need that also for your audience. Like if they heard you say you can dip it, maybe irate. Okay, this has been awesome. I'm glad we didn't have any like specific, I don't know, like plan. I think we really rambled, but I think it's quite good. So I do appreciate you coming on. Yeah, it's fantastic. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Wart.